Alright, welcome to part one of this paint splatter project. In this video, we'll just kind of look at like an overview of what's going to happen here and give you an idea kind of what to look for in pictures to get started for this project. So first thing, let's kind of look at what we're going to learn in this. This project is really big on masks. You're going to be using a lot of different masks kind of working together. Sometimes you'll be applying masks and kind of using them in different ways. So that's one of the big pieces there. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to do filters. That's kind of what gives me this effect that you're seeing here. Another thing we're going to do are some kind of like lighting effects we're going to do to this, and we're also going to learn how to kind of create smoke for this background. So we'll kind of look and see how to do this kind of bit by bit. So first thing we got to do is you got to find a picture. You want something that's going to have a lot of kind of like energy to it. So if I look at the original picture here, you want something like this where there's like some movement, some feeling, some passion to it. Whether it's a musician, can be something from a movie, a sports figure, doesn't even necessarily need to be a person. It could be like a logo maybe from a sports team. Just something where it looks like it has some like energy, some passion to it. Because eventually you see with the smoke and everything, it almost looks like it's an explosion. Picture if this character was made out of like liquid. They're moving around, they're just ready to pop. Pieces are kind of flying off of them. That's the kind of feeling you want for the picture. Another thing to think about when you're getting a picture, you want to make sure at least 3 of the sides are not clipped or cut by the edge of the photograph. You can see here in this one the legs are cut off, but the other 3 sides are available to us. That's important because let's say his head was cut off or the left side. That really limits where I can place this picture in a document, because if I do this, it looks like he's kind of floating. You're going to want any of the flat sides that are clipped by the picture to be cut off. Now if the left side was cut as well, I'd be forced to kind of do this. Now I'd have to really make this thing big so it doesn't look like it's just kind of squeezed down into the corner here. So as you find a picture, kind of keep about an idea about having 3 sides available to you. Another thing to think about, if you find a picture and you want to know how big it is, in Google make sure you're searching for large photos. After you get it, right click on the picture, go get info, and under more info, you might have to click the little triangle to see that, you can find out how big it is. Now this one is almost 2,000 pixels by 2,000 pixels. That's a pretty good size. I would go minimum at least 1,000 by 1,000. The other thing, if you have something that's 1,000 by 1,000, I wouldn't be able to get like this smaller character in the background. It needs to be the thing that you're going to cut out needs to take up most of the picture in that case if it's a smaller one like that. So once you found the picture you want, you're ready to get started here. The last thing we'll do in this video is let's just get our document started and get our picture on here. So I'm going to just delete this one. And let's make a new one again. So we're going to go File, New. I'm going to go Inches. And now the size is kind of up to you. You got to look at the picture that you chose and decide, should this thing be taller or should it be wider? We're going to make it the size of a sheet of computer paper. So in my case, I'm going to go taller rather than wide. So I'm going to do a 8.5, and I'm inches for the width, 11 for the height. Now if you wanted yours to be wider, you would just simply flip-flop these numbers. The width would be 11, height would be 8.5. Resolution, we're going to do 150. This will print nicely. It's not the highest quality we could print, but it's still pretty darn good. I'm going to make the background contents trim. It's parent, and I'm going to give this thing a name. Let's call it like Paint Splatter, or you could also name it after your subject. So in my case, I could call it like Bruce Springsteen, or if you were doing like the Flyers logo, or anything like that, you could just name it what it is as well. So I'm going to call that Paint Splatter. I'm going to hit OK. Now that I have this blank document, I'm going to pull my picture into this document by just simply dragging it in. First thing, it's almost like I'm transforming it. Right now it's letting me kind of change the size and all. So what I have to do then to kind of place this is just like when you're making a transformation where you change the size. I go ahead and hit enter. So now it's like kind of there. Next thing I got to do, this is not on our project. It just is calling up this file that lives on my desktop. Well, if I delete that file off my desktop later, this image won't show up anymore. So what I want to do is I want to right click on this layer and go ahead and rasterize that layer. Alright, so next thing. Right now Bruce Springsteen is kind of floating in midair. He's not going to take up much of this project right now once I get rid of the background. So I got to take care of those 2 issues. So I'm going to do Command T. I'm going to move this so it's touching the bottom while I'm working so I can kind of see, because that's the part that's getting cut off for me. And I'm going to hold shift while I drag from the corners. You got to drag from the corners, not from the sides or the top or bottom, because even if you're holding shift then it'll still take it out of proportion. And I'm just kind of looking over this thing, and again I'm only looking at the part I'm going to keep. I'm not worried about the backgrounds here. and I'm making that kind of nice and big, still leaving some room for this splatter effect. I have the legs getting cut off because they were cut off in the original picture. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and press enter. Now our picture is placed here. We're ready for the next stage of this thing.